Well, it's Friday. That means it's live stream time from the Huckabee Theater in Nashville, just outside, technically, in Hendersonville. We're proud of Hendersonville. It's a wonderful community. It's part of the Nashville area, and if you've never been here for one of our shows that we tape on Friday nights, you're really missing out on something. The tickets are free, but you got to ask for them, and I hope you'll do that at Huckabee TV. Senior producer of the show is Pam Case. She is with me today.
Yes.
As is every Friday, right?
Yes, indeed, sir.
So she fields all these questions that you send in, which we're going to ask you to start doing right now. You can send them in the chat. If you'd like a little more visibility for your question, you can put a super chat status on it. Moderators are watching the chat to get your questions, and we'll get as many as we can in today. A lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the vote counts in Arizona and Nevada taking way too much time. We'll discuss Republicans who've had some significant wins in New York, and Biden proclaims quite loudly that he has learned absolutely nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. But before we jump into that, if you enjoy this show, do us a favor and hit the like button. We're going to try to get to 1,500 likes before the end of the stream. You wonder, why does that matter? Well, it helps boost us in the YouTube algorithm. Don't want to be overly technical, but simple as this. The video gets shown to more people if we have lots of likes. So if you think this live stream ought to be seen by more people, smash that like button. I mean, just bang it hard, because that gets us there. So that's why we ask you to hit the like button. Now, Pam, every week we usually have a pre-show poll.
Yes, sir.
What was this one?
Well, this is a big one. The poll asked, who's your first pick for president in 2024?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
so
we pushed it out there.
Got?
Donald Trump, 62%. Ron DeSantis at 35%. Carrie Lake at 3%. And goose eggs for Mr. Joe Biden.
I'm with them on the goose eggs. I totally am. I'd say scramble those eggs, because
yeah. So thank you. Well over 600 folks were able to vote with on this before we got started today.
That's terrific.
Yeah, it's great.
Hey, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, right now is a really good time to do that. Hit that subscribe button that you see on the screen, the notification bell. We'll let you know whenever we're going to do one of these live streams. You'll also be notified of some of our special videos that we put together. We always like to pull in a favorite comment that we get from the week before. Our favorite comment from last week's live stream is kind of a question, but it's from Kevin Steele. Here's what he says, quote, "So I want to be clear. That is the start of every answer from Karine Jean-Pierre, and she's never clear about anything." I thought, that's great, and that's so true. I went back and watched some of the footage from the White House press room, and it's true. The first thing she says, always says, so begins every answer. And then she says, let me be really clear. And then she is totally unclear.
Yeah.
Just a great observation. Well played. All right, here's my question for you this week. Do you think something is fishy when it takes days or even weeks to count votes? That's the question I'm asking you. I want you to leave your answer in the chat or in the comments section below. We will compile those. Love to see what your responses might be to that. I have a feeling people might not be surprised to know that I was pretty excited on election night about an election in Arkansas for the next governor, the 47th governor, who will be my daughter.
I know. We were so very proud. And, of course, they called that pretty quick. I was very surprised at how quickly after that 7 o'clock hour they called the race. Let
me tell you, polls closed in Arkansas at 7:30. At 7:31, Fox News called it for Sarah, and at 7:32, the Associated Press. And frankly, in the 30-plus years that I've been involved in politics, running, or whatever I've done, I've never seen an election call that quick.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
It really was. It was like the polls closed, and a minute later, okay, it's over. There were still people in line to vote. I really think they should have waited, even though I kind of thrilled that they went ahead and called it.
Right.
We never worried that it was going to be in doubt, but, you don't know.
Right.
She ended up with 63.5% of the vote. The Democrat got 35, and the independent, or libertarian candidate, she's a libertarian, got, a couple of points. So that's how it played out. It was wonderful.
Well, and on a total personal level, I follow her, of course,
Yeah.
on all the socials, and it was so much fun to see her posts that were pushed out with you and Janet
Yeah.
and the kids and Brian, and it just, I could tell the excitement in the family. Anyway, so from us, from Huckabee staff, congratulations to you, sir.
Well,
How wonderful.
Thank you. We're excited now about getting for the inaugural, which will be January the 10th.
And moving her back into a house that she grew up in.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You know, it's kind of sad. The poor girl's worked really hard. Now she's going to have to go back to government housing after all these years, getting away from government housing.
But she knows that house well.
She knows it inside and out, and I've laughed and told people that when her kids try to hide from her, not going to be able to. She knows where all the places are.
And several acres, by the way. How many acres is that
9
property?
acres.
Yeah.
All
her kids
carefully
won't have a
walled.
chance.
It'll be wonderful, and they won't be able to escape and go running off because there are cameras everywhere.
Yeah. So you can try it, George, but it isn't going to happen.
I was going to say, it'll be the first time George will have been contained. He's the youngest of her three. Special little guy. I love him to death. He's 7 years old and funny. Oh my gosh, he's funny, but he's a handful.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. That's what little boys do.
It'll take two parents, an older brother, an older sister, and
150 cameras.
Yeah, 150 cameras and 15 state troopers who will be keeping watch on George. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get right into it. We've got so many great videos to show. This one, you know, as you may know, the chairman of the Maricopa County Supervisors in Arizona is really having a hard time getting all these votes counted. And sometimes there are wonderful ways to kind of put it in perspective. We've apparently found the person who writes Kamala Harris's speeches because it's so Kamala-esque in the wording, but I want you to get some idea of just the explanation. Here we go.
I know this is a fairly new thing on how much time it takes, but we just take the time needed that time needs for us to take time. And sometimes time requires a lot of time. And this is one of those times where the time is just going to take so much time.
That was brilliant.
I can't even.
That's
did anybody
brilliant.
count how many times she said the word?
No, but it's no more than Kamala Harris does. She's given, 30 seconds to say something,
Yeah,
and she
fair
uses
enough.
the same 3 words over and over in a circle. Just hilarious. Now, this next clip is not comedy. This next clip is the actual election supervisor, and he's being interviewed. I think it's on CNN. I believe that's right. And listen to his answer. I've never seen anybody so flippant about the competence of counting votes. Watch.
When do you anticipate the votes will be counted in total, those 400,000 plus votes?
Well, we will be going into next week. There's some onesie twosies, again, pursuant to Arizona law, but I think that we'll see the lion's share here wrap up by early next week.
Early next week, can you give me a day? Are we talking Monday? Or we?
Maybe, as long
Onesie twosies. Have you ever heard that from a public official? I mean, I don't know if he's counting votes or if he's playing Old MacDonald on a Etch-a-Sketch or something. What in the world is that?
I don't.
I mean, if I were him, I'd be saying, I am so sorry. We are so utterly incompetent. We cannot count votes in Arizona. And if I lived in Arizona, and if you live in Arizona, you ought to demand that your state fix the embarrassing, humiliating voting system that you have. It can be done because so many other states that are much bigger than Arizona, Florida is a great example. Florida gets all of their votes counted, and they are reported within about half an hour to an hour after the the polling precincts are closed, and nobody ever contests it because it's so efficient, so clean, so transparent, there's nothing to contest. So it doesn't matter who wins, who loses, it's over and everyone accepts the results. There are no, quote, election deniers because there's no reason to doubt it. The reason you have election deniers, and I know that Joe Biden and the press keeps talking about this, reason people reject and deny elections is because when it takes several weeks to count votes, you just hard time believing that everything is on the up and up. All right, here's a Clark County, Nevada situation. Clark County, Nevada is very similar to what's going on in Maricopa County in Arizona, where they just can't seem to count.
We still have over 50,000 ballots that need to be counted. There's no weekend for the Clark County Election Department. Will continue to process. Mail should be counted in Clark County by Saturday, barring any issues with equipment. With the exception of the cure ballots, which I've already mentioned to you, the deadline will be Monday, and those provisional ballots that we must receive a report from the Secretary of State.
You know, you'd think you just hire more people. If you're that incompetent, you can't get it done. There's no reason. This is inexcusable for us not to know the results of the election within certainly a few hours after the polls have closed. This is insane. And I'll tell you, somebody who is waiting on the results is Carrie Lake. We've got some pretty big news for you. Carrie Lake is going to be on the Huckabee Show this weekend. We are very excited to have her. I think the only person who has impressed me more as a candidate in this entire election cycle is that Arkansas governor candidate. But Carrie Lake is my new political hero out there. I just love watching her. She's strong. She's not vicious in the sense that she's not hateful or you don't go, ooh. She just challenges the press and challenges false narratives, but does it with an extraordinary level of intellectual strength. Here's Carrie Lake talking about that situation in Arizona.
Could be some intentional actions here to slow roll this. Don't believe the narrative that you're hearing. They did this to me in the primary. When they finally declared me the winner, I was only up by, I think, 0.5 point. So the media ran with the false narrative that I squeaked out a win, a narrow victory. And then later in the coming days, they finally counted the rest of the ballots, only to reveal that I won by 5 points, which is pretty good when you're up against 4 opponents.
Yeah, it's real good. You know, Pam, you and I both have been in television for a long time, decades. Yes. And I watched Carrie Lake. She was a news anchor for 30 years.
Yes.
You can see that come through. Her professionalism. She's so very smooth and articulate. She's got this amazing voice, easy on the eyes. I mean, she's got the whole package. Just really an incredible candidate. But some people don't make that transition very well from being a professional, whether it's newscaster or personality. As a candidate, they stumble because they're dealing with issues. She has just, I mean, smoothly went into it in a way that is very impressive.
Well, she has it as a candidate, as you and I both know. So with how smooth she is as an anchor, I mean, to me, I don't know where she's going to stop, but this lady has a long career in front of her when it comes to her political career.
I could not agree more. I think she is just remarkable, and I'm very excited to watch where she's headed. And I'm excited that you will see her on the Huckabee Show right here on TBN this weekend. Now, I think it'd be fair to say I was disappointed in the results of the election from a national perspective. Very excited about some specific races. Very disappointed that there was not a clear 53 majority in the Senate and 230 in the House. We're still counting votes, folks, but I think Republicans will win both the House and the Senate. It'll be much narrower margins than I had hoped for. But here's what's really, I think, stunning. If you ask Americans, are they pleased with where the country is going? They say absolutely not. And the numbers are staggeringly negative. Watch.
Feelings about the way things are going in the U.S. This is a bleak picture from this electorate. Look down here. 39% dissatisfied. 34% are downright angry. That's 73%. 3/4 of the electorate tell us they're dissatisfied or angry. Only 5% enthusiastic, 20% satisfied.
I mean, those are staggering numbers. You got 75% of the people saying they're just ticked off, and only 5% enthusiastic. And you wonder, what mental hospital are those people in? Because even if you're left or right, how can you look around this country right now and say, I just think we are at our peak? But apparently 5% of the people are living in some bunker somewhere where they do not get any TV or newspapers. and they think it's all coming up great. There are some really bright moments in the elections, and this sort of gets lost in what I call big picture stuff. But for example, 4 different congressional districts in the bluest of states, New York, have flipped from Democrat to Republican. Let's watch.
So there was definitely a red wave, as Chad is talking about, in one of the places where you would at least expect to find it, in deep blue New York. So what's going on here? Look at this. 4 House districts flipped red, 2 of them on Long Island. Republican George Santos won his district, where President Biden had won by 10 points just 2 years ago. Anthony D'Esposito flipped his seat that was held by Democrats since 1997.
I was so hoping Lee Zeldin would win as governor of that state, defeat Kathy Hochul. He didn't, but it was much closer than anyone thought it would be. And again, the only thing I can figure is all the good conservative Republicans in New York that moved to Florida. So, you know, maybe that's what's at stake there. But it was a real race. Kathy Hochul did not just walk right in to quick victory or an easy one. Hey, if you're enjoying this show, do us a favor, hit that like button. We're trying to get to 1,500 likes before the stream ends. That helps us boost in the YouTube algorithm. And that way this video gets shown to more people. So if you think it ought to be shown to more people, and I know you think that, hit that like button. That is important. And do not forget, we'd like for you to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. That way we will be able to let you know when we're doing live streams just like this one. We got some great more videos, but let's take a few questions from our viewers.
Sure, let's dive in. Louis LaFlower is writing us today, Gov. Super chat, and by the way, thank you very much, Louis. Even if Trump won in 2024, do you think that he could reverse the downward spiral? Personally, I believe that Canada and the U.S. are lost.
I don't think we're lost yet. And yes, I do think that Trump or any other strong president who is as strong as Trump could see a turnaround. First, you've got to have majorities in the House and the Senate, because the president can't do it by himself. But a president can do a lot because he shapes the policies, particularly with our international community. And so, as we saw with Donald Trump, he basically restored NATO by going and sitting down with the other NATO partners, looking them square in the face and saying, you guys are a bunch of deadbeats. You're not paying your fair share. And they started paying. Donald Trump, for all the people who thought he would destroy NATO, he actually saved it. I think that's pretty significant.
Right. All right, let's move on. Teresa Lowe said, and she's agreeing with you, I think, some of the things you were saying earlier, sir. What happened to the day when we voted and the results were posted by midnight? The only votes that were left to count would be the absentee ballots by citizens that were out of the country, such as the military.
Well, a lot of it has had to do with, you know, we're trying to make it easier for people to vote, which I certainly agree with and appreciate. So early voting was the first thing. You know, you can vote early, and it used to be absentee. You had to declare a reason that you could not be in person on Election Day. You had to say, I'm going to be on a trip to California. I'm having surgery that day. But you couldn't just have no excuse voting. Most states changed that so that you can have early voting. And early voting simply means that you can vote for any reason and you can do it early. Some states took that to an extreme, and early voting started a month out before the election. Well, that's really too long, because what you end up with, issues pop up, debates happen, people have voted, and they miss all of that. Look at Pennsylvania.
Right.
Their debate happened 4 weeks after people had been voting already. And some people, for the first time, saw John Fetterman in the debate. They probably voted for him, and then they thought, oh, what have I done?
Right.
That's what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's hear from Gloria Brown. She's asking, and this is a question about Arkansas, Governor, what can be done to get rid of voting machines in Arkansas?
I mean, it's a decision that is made mostly at the local level. Each county decides what kind of machines they're going to have. They have to be approved by the State Election Commission. I've not heard a lot of problems about voting machines in Arkansas. If there are, please send me some information on it. But, you know, I don't recall, even in this election, hearing any complaints that they were suspect or maybe were problematic or had broken down. Machines break down. You know, there's some advantage in the old-fashioned paper ballots. You just fix them. But there's also ways to mess that up, as we remember from hanging Chads in Florida back in 2000. So I don't know that there's a perfect system, but we should never quit trying to find it and get as close to perfect as possible when it comes to how we vote, because nothing is more horrible to me than an election not being on the up and up, fair and square.
Yeah, well, there's states that are doing it well, and I think we have 2 years benchmarks. Let's figure out who they are and let's get it right.
Absolutely.
424. All right, so Afraid Not 2016 is asking, Gov, why is Trump already attacking DeSantis?
I wish I could answer that question. I don't know, and I personally don't think it's a great idea. I don't have to tell you, look, I love President Trump. I'm grateful for what he did. As president, he did more than any president in my lifetime, including Ronald Reagan, in terms of just actually getting done what the country needed. He's been the most effective president. Rough around the edges, wasn't diplomatic. I understand all that, but I'm grateful for his policies and his implementation of them. I'll be the first to tell you, I do not understand why he thinks it's a good idea to go after Ron DeSantis, and then today, after Glenn Youngkin in Virginia. And I thought, why? We need to bring the party together. For one, I hope if he's going to make a big announcement this Tuesday, it's that he's going to go down to Georgia and help Herschel Walker beat Raphael Warnock. I'd rather him make that announcement Tuesday than that he's running. Because frankly, until that Georgia election is settled, I hope there's nothing else that we're talking about other than that. I plan to go to Georgia myself on Wednesday to campaign with Herschel. And, I just feel like this is a critical time. And every conservative and every pro-life Republican needs to be trying to make sure we get through that election before anybody else brings up 2024.
Speaking of 2024, Carl Helmick is asking, I really don't believe the Democrats are going to run Joe Biden another term, but that's just me. Who do you think they might put up to run for president? And thank you for your time, Governor Huckabee.
Well, thank you, Carl. I look at their bench and I'm thinking, who have they got? Are they going to try to, give Hillary enough B12 shots to get her back on the trail? I can't imagine. Normally you would say, well, it's the vice president, but Kamala Harris, seriously? That ain't going to happen. They don't like her. And she has performed so poorly. So I can't imagine who the Democrats reach out there and try to get. They don't have a strong bench. And, quite frankly, Republicans, a lot of people in the bullpen if needed. So it's a different deal. I want us to look at some video. This is Joe Biden. We joke about him, but look, this is pretty serious when the President of the United States has to be told not only who to call upon, but why. And, it's like he forgets that he probably ought to keep some things to himself. But here he is at a press conference where he clearly says somebody has told him who to call on. Watch.
Now, I've been given a list of 10 people that I'm supposed to call on, and you're all supposed to ask me one question, but I'm sure you'll ask me more. And so let me start off with a list I've been given.
Here he is, the President of the United States, and he's following somebody's orders. I don't know who's telling him who he can call on. Dude, you're the president. You can call on anyone in that room you want to. They're scared to death that you might do that because then you would be in trouble and you wouldn't have a scripted answer. But that's pretty scary. But when he starts talking, then you realize why they want to control it so much.
Oh, no, I'm just saying. I just found it interesting that Biden's being Biden's being an extremist.
Yeah, that's 13. I mean, that was like a lot of things, just your head scratcher. Then he says some stuff that is really kind of frightening because he says he's going to take on Elon Musk and investigate him. Look into him, I guess is the right word that he says, but it's an investigation. And I find this not just bizarre, I find it disturbing that a president would say this about a private citizen and a business entrepreneur. But here's his comment about Elon Musk.
Elon Musk's cooperation and/or technical relationships with other countries is worthy of being looked at. Whether or not he is doing anything inappropriate, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that it's worth being looked at. But that's all I'll say.
That's probably better that that's all you're going to say, because it took you a long, long time to say that. I mean, it took him longer to get those few words out than it does to count votes in Arizona. This is just, but the content of it is very disturbing.
Absolutely.
Who does he think he is to look into Elon? If you want to look into somebody, Mr. President, why don't you look into your son, Hunter? Why don't you look and find out how many millions of dollars, allegedly 11 million, in a deal he made with the Communist Chinese Party on a trip that he made on Air Force Two with you? Don't we have really a need to know why the son of the then vice president was making multi-million dollars in deals with communist Chinese people while he was on a trip with his father, the official vice president? There's plenty for you to look at, but it's not necessarily looking at Elon Musk, who's pretty transparent about what he's saying. I want to get to a couple more questions, but this is just too much. We got to go to this. There was a question asked of President Biden after the Democrats basically, had some serious losses. What will he be doing differently? Let's watch.
What in the next 2 years do you intend to do differently to change people's opinion of the direction of the country, particularly as you contemplate a run for president in 2024?
Nothing.
I mean, that's unbelievable. A president loses seats in the House and the Senate. 73% of the people say we're going the wrong direction. What are you going to do differently? Nothing. Because I like driving over the cliff. I like driving the wrong way on a one-way interstate. Yes, I do. That's bizarre. When he says, I'll give the people nothing different. That's why we should have voted overwhelmingly to get that party out of power. But when I heard him say nothing, you know what it reminded me of? This great scene in The Godfather with Michael Corleone.
Senator, you can have my answer now if you like. My offer is this. Nothing.
Maybe we should start calling Biden Joe Corleone.
Wow.
Because that's kind of the way he played it. You get nothing. All right, you got a couple of others for me?
I do. I would go on and share, I guess, now, too. We have had the poll where we asked a question of our audience today. Do you think that something is fishy when it takes days or even weeks to count votes? Here we go, 98%. 98% with yes. So there you go, with over 1,300 folks voting this afternoon.
Wow.
So, yeah, wow. All right, Jay Luther is asking this afternoon, Governor, why do you think all 6 of the pro-choice ballot initiatives passed from Colorado to Kentucky?
I think in some cases it was an overwhelming amount of money that was spent, and in some cases it was a lack of clarity in what people were voting for. I especially believe that was what drove Michigan's vote. People didn't really realize that they were voting for unlimited abortion. They had been taught in the ads that they'd been fed that this was simply to give people the opportunity to codify Roe v. Wade, to keep it as it was. This was not. This was to really create an abortion law that had no limits. You can kill a baby in some of these states on the day the baby is supposed to be born. I just want you to stop and ask yourself, is that a society that you can believe in? I find it hard to believe.
Yeah. All right, Governor Vincent Hewlett is asking, hi, from the UK, a hello first. The media here are saying the Dems keep both houses. Do you believe that's true?
No, I do not. I think Republicans will end up with both houses. It'll be very slim majorities. They're not going to have a big cushion, which means that we can't afford for people like Mitt Romney and Lisa Murkowski to go off the deep end and end up becoming what they really are, which is either very soft Republicans or Democrats. Excuse me. But I don't think Democrats will be a majority in either house before it's over. But I know we're out of time, but I've got to show this last one. This is the debt forgiveness issue, which, by the way, a federal judge said no can do. And if you read the opinion, it's very strong. It's not because of the politics or policy, and it's because of what many of us said from the beginning. It's unconstitutional for a president to allocate funds. That is a role limited to the House of Representatives. So the president was way over his skis when he said he was going to forgive student debt because there was no legislation that authorized him to do it. So this was a very good decision on the part of the federal judge. But what's interesting, when the polls were conducted to find out, well, if you got this loan forgiveness, what would you do with this money? Would you pay off your loan? I want you to listen to what people said.
Recipients of President Biden's student debt forgiveness plan could see their monthly payments drop up to $300 a month in the coming weeks. But get this, 73% say actually plan to spend that extra cash on travel and dining out.
Well, that's pretty fascinating because according to that, most of the people would spend it on travel and dining out. So all of this thing of giving student debt because the debt is overwhelming. If the debt's overwhelming you, don't you think you ought to be paying it off, not spending it on travel and eating out? This is absurd.
One would think.
Well, what's not absurd is that we have enjoyed having you with us on the live stream today, and I hope you'll continue to leave your questions in the comments section. If you have not yet subscribed, right now, this very second is the time to do that, and also hit the notification bell.